want to be sure to invite you to our upcoming Prophecy Conference. It's going to be in wonderful, beautiful Colorado Springs this August 6th and 7th and 8th. Boy, I tell you, August here where I live is a hot month, and Colorado Springs is a great, cool place. We're going to be in a lovely hotel, the Marriott there on Tech Center Drive. We're going to have an incredible lineup of speakers. Many of them helped us in Florida. Some of the headliners are going to be Bob Cornuke, Jerome Corsi, Pastor Billy Crone, Pastor Russ Dizdar, Joseph Farah, very well-known, recognizable names. We would love for you to join us. The registration cost is only $90 for the conference. What a deal. 3 days of solid biblical prophetic teaching and a chance to gather with believers from all over. You need to call us and register for this, and we would love to have you do that. The number is 800-475-1111 or prophecyinthenews.com on our website. Thank you. Welcome to Prophecy in the News. I'm Kevin Clarkson, your host. Our guests for the next 3 programs are Dr. Jonathan Cahn. It's good to have you, sir.
Great to be here.
And
always.
Shall I call you Rabbi?
You can call me anything you like. I'm not a doctor,
Okay.
spiritually, but anything you
Amen.
like.
Amen. Good to have you with us again.
Always great to be back.
And, we're excited. You obviously pastor a Messianic congregation in New Jersey, but you've gained a lot of renown or awareness of the message you bring through a couple of books you've written. The Harbinger was the first one, and then The Mystery of the Shemitah.
Yes,
so,
which is the new one right now, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's going forward with these messages right now?
Well, we're in the Shemitah right now, and we're going to open up this mystery, but it's they've been going forth. I mean, I never wrote books in my life, before this, and
Yes.
they literally flowed out, and the Lord has chosen to make this go forth to millions now, and He's opened doors to leaders, to American leaders on Capitol Hill, and I believe that the Bible says that God warns before He judges, and He reveals to His people. And so I believe that's the reason. I believe that the reason why the Harbinger came out, the reason why the Shemitah has come out, is that He's warning before He acts, because I believe we are heading for judgment, this nation and this civilization, and that God wants His people ready, and God also wants to call back those who will come who are not saved for salvation. So I believe that we're in very, very critical times, and especially right now.
And I would ask you, Jonathan, what kind of reception are you finding on Capitol Hill?
Amazing. I mean, I was, in one of these programs, I believe we'll be able to show the clip of it. But just recently, I was on Capitol Hill speaking to leaders and members of Congress, and it was a gathering that actually, an event that actually opened up because of the Harbinger. Somebody heard me speak with the Harbinger. The Lord opened the doors on Capitol Hill for the first time in over 100 years, a gathering of prayer and worship on Capitol Hill with members of Congress. So those who I have met, those who are at the gathering, they're all, they're all yes. I mean, they're all. I'm not saying that's the overall thing, but also every member of Congress, as far as I know, has been given a copy of the Harbinger and the Mystery of the Shemitah. So the Lord recently allowed me to speak a prophetic word, because I believe it was the day after the Supreme Court just heard the case on marriage. So I believe we are in very, very critical times.
And we'll get into some of these issues.
We actually have a clip of that.
I think these things trigger some of the judgment that we're looking at. Well, you've kind of got some new information and updates on the Mystery of the Shemitah, and you've put a DVD out that includes those called, I believe, The Mystery of the Shemitah Unlocked.
Yes. This is new, and they put it together. It's a very powerful, like a prophetic explosion, literally, of what's in the Shemitah and more, that people be ready. So it's probably one of the most powerful, I think, presentations of the Shemitah, what's happening. And also, I want people to be prepared, and so there's about almost an hour of bonus materials about being prepared, and also, all sorts of things that I can't cover any other times. Plus, things have happened since the Shemitah has begun. that I know we'll talk about. So yeah, it's like a prophetic explosion. It's the DVD. They did a tremendous job on it.
Well, we do have some clips from that, and I think if we could look at an introductory one right now.
Yeah, this should set it up. This is the very beginning.
All right, let's watch that.
Is it possible that there exists an ancient mystery that lies behind the events of modern times that determines the rise and fall of the stock market, and the economy, the rise and collapse of nations, the destruction of empires and superpowers, a mystery more than 3,000 years old, and yet that determines global cataclysms, the timing of world wars, the atomic age, the Cold War, the attack of 9/11, and more. Could a mystery revealed in a Middle Eastern mountain ordain the rise of America and what may be its coming fall? Could this ancient mystery given to a nation of shepherds be so precise that it has ordained and determined the timing of the greatest collapses in Wall Street history, down to the year, the month, the date, and the hours? What if we could know the future? Could there exist a mystery going back to ancient times that's been affecting, even molding our lives from the days we were born? From events of global proportions to the state of our bank accounts, our past, our present, and our future. And what does it foretell concerning what is yet to come? What is this mystery? It's called the Mystery of the Shemitah.
Well, that's an exciting presentation and beginning for this information.
Yeah, this is a big thing. Now, when I wrote The Harbinger, I first mentioned the mystery of the Shemitah. I knew it was big, but I didn't realize how big it was. Because I really didn't have time to ponder this. And this is so big, it literally has affected everybody watching this program right now from the moment they were born. I mean, everything from our bank accounts to world events, global cataclysms, world wars, 9/11, recessions, everything. And it's so major, and this is so specific. It's one of God's mysteries in the Bible that's so specific. It deals with the timing of judgment. I mean, and actually we can set that up because this begins thousands of years ago when Moses gives the law of the Shemitah to Israel. And the law of the Shemitah is this. God said, you'll work for 7 years in the land, but then on the 6 years, on the 7th year, you'll rest. It'll be a complete Sabbath. You know, everybody knows there's a Sabbath of days, but what a lot of people don't realize is there's a Sabbath of years just as much. An entire year, every 7th year, total resting of the land. No buying or selling of the fruits of the land, no plowing, no reaping, no sowing, all that. And so it's a total cessation. It's saying that God is sovereign. God is over everything. And that the land belongs to God. And all the blessings that are given to a nation come from God. And so He is sovereign. So that's what's declared on the Sabbath year. Well, the Sabbath year in Hebrew is called the Shemitah. So that's where we get the Shemitah. Shemitah can mean the release, but it can also mean a lot of other things. So the land rests. Now, on the last day of the Shemitah, an extraordinary thing happens. It's one day event. It says at the end of the 7 years, and the end is the last day is Elul 29 on the Hebrew calendar. On Elul 29, last day of the Shemitah, last day of the 7-year countdown, all the nation's debts are wiped out, all its credits wiped out. Everyone who owes something, they have to cancel it. Everyone who is owed something, canceled. A complete financial nullification, wipeout day, Elul 29. When the sun sets on Elul 29, everything has to be canceled out. And by the way, when the sun sets, it ushers in the Feast of Trumpets. So it comes all together. So this is what happened. Now, this was to be a blessing for Israel. The Shemitah was like a Sabbath, a blessing. I mean, it's a blessing to have your debts wiped out. It's a blessing to rest. But when Israel turned away from God and they started driving him out of their government, out of their lives, out of their culture, and they started pursuing other gods and Baal and the gods of prosperity, they sought the blessings without the blesser. What happened is the Shemitah turns from a blessing to a sign of judgment on a nation that has known God, that has driven him out of their lives, that has pursued idols and prosperity ahead of God. And it's a judgment that specifically strikes the financial realm and the economic realm of the nation. That's the sustenance, the blessings. Well, this all comes to a head in the days of the prophet Jeremiah, when in 586 BC, Babylon comes in. The land is devastated, wiped out. The people are taken away to Babylon. And for 70 years, the judgment lasts. Why? The Bible gives the answer. It says, for the 70 years that the land did not observe its Sabbaths. Well, it's talking about the Shemitahs here, the Sabbath years. So now the land will observe its Sabbath. So now the people had to be removed for the land to observe its Sabbath. So the Babylonian captivity lasts exactly according to the mystery of the Shemitah. The Shemitah gives the timing of the judgment. It actually determines when nations rise and fall, because for this to happen, Babylon had to rise as a nation to wipe them out, basically, at the time of the Shemitah. Then Babylon had to fall, and Persia had to rise for them to go back at the end of the Shemitah. So even world history is hanging on this mystery. So here's the question. Here's the big question. Could this mystery still be affecting our lives today? Could the pattern of the seventh year, just like the pattern of the seventh day is still in our lives, could the pattern of the seventh year still be affecting our lives today? And at times, with a situation being conducive, could it become a warning of judgment? And the answer is yes. The answer is it's affecting our lives to this day.
So you're saying it is in effect today, and it has manifested.
It has been in effect, and it has been manifesting, is manifesting, and I believe even now with America is being linked to a warning of judgment as it was with Israel. And the thing is that, so now we're dealing with this. Now if we're going to see it today, in what realm would we see it first? Well, the first realm of the Shemitah is it affects the economic realm. The land rests. There's no production. There's no fruit. Well, that we today call it a recession or a depression when that happens by force. Then it also affects the financial realm because on the last day, all the financial accounts are wiped clean of debt. Well, when that happens, when financial accounts are wiped clean in our day, it's called a collapse, a stock market collapse, a crash. So could there be a pattern here? Now, if we look at the last 40 years of our history, to take an example, there have been 5 major collapses, 5 long-term, when the stock market reaches peak and then goes usually linked to a recession. But it's 5 of them, starting in the year 1973. Now, there's something strange about those 5. They've all affected our lives, every one of them. There's something strange with that. And I believe we have a clip that shows the 5 greatest long-term crashes, actually all of them, in our history, is linked to an ancient biblical mystery.
Let's look at that clip now.
In the last 40 years, there have been 5 major turning points in the financial realm when the stock market reaches its long-term peak and begins a long-term collapse.
The years of these turning points, these peaks, these collapses are these: 1973, 1980, 1987, 2000, 2007. Is there anything peculiar or strange about these years? The Shemitah affects the financial and economic realms and takes place on a 7-year cycle. The first and second turning point, 1973 and 1980. That's a 7-year cycle. The second and third turning point, 1980 and 1987. Another 7-year cycle. The fourth and fifth turning point, 2000 and 2007. Another 7-year cycle. The Shemitah ordains a financial nullifying to take place according to a 7-year cycle or mystery.
In the past 40 years, every single major financial turning point has taken place according to a 7-year cycle from the preceding or following financial collapse. Beyond this 7-year cycle, do any of these 5 major collapses have any connection to the year of the Shemitah? The answer is yes. How many of them? Every single one of them. The year 1973 was the year of the Shemitah. The year 1980, the year of the Shemitah. The year 1987, year of the Shemitah. The year 2000, year of the Shemitah. The year 2007, the year of the Shemitah. 100% of the crashes take place not only according to a 7-year cycle, but also according to the specific 7-year cycle ordained in the Bible, the biblical Shemitah.
Well, I want to just say, from a standpoint of video production, that's a great video, but the information, the truth there is very compelling.
Yes, yeah, they did a powerful job, and it's also very clear for anybody to see it. People have used this want to use it to show it in churches. All that, it's very clear. Yeah.
I want to ask something that observant people will have noticed. Yeah. You clipped along there through 73.
Yes.
And we looked like we moved past 94.
Yes.
There was not a big stock market crash.
Yes.
In 94.
Yes. Yes.
What have you uncovered about that?
Yeah, 2 things. First of all, one is, I mean, on one hand, I wanted to use that to say, hey, there's an exception that proves the rule. It doesn't have to be every time, but it's not even an exception. The fact that even that, 1994, I was going by the S&P 500, the stock market peaks, but bigger than the stock market is the bond market. It's twice as big. People don't realize that. In 1994, you have the greatest bond market collapse in history to that day. I mean, at the time of the Shemitah, and that, in fact, I think it even kind of certain things start ending at the end of the Shemitah. In that time, you have one of the greatest collapses in history, period. I just didn't use it because I was using a different measure. Bond market collapse, and it's called the Great Bond Market Massacre. So even that, if you go simply by collapses, you have 6 of them now, not 5. Every single one. Every single
amazing.
one. Yeah. And it's not just the Bible, not only that's the year, but the Bible actually gets even more specific. The Bible gives the time of the year. And so could there be a mystery that's linked to that actually gives us the time of the year of the greatest crashes? Well, in the Bible, there's a month called Tishri. Tishri is the sacred month of the Bible. Tishri opens the Shemitah and closes the Shemitah. When it comes at the end of the 7-year period, the end of the Shemitah, it comes right the moment the sun sets on that Elul 29 wipeout day, when all financial accounts are wiped out of debt. On that same moment ushers in Tishri. So the collapse ushers in Tishri. So Tishri would be the month that would manifest that collapse, or whatever's wiped out. So here's the question. If you look at the greatest day crashes, not years, they can happen any time of the year, any day, any month, any week. Do any of them happen at the time of Tishri, or around the time of Tishri, that time in the Bible? The answer is they can happen any time. I mean, 1 out of 12 months, they can happen in 52 weeks of the year. The answer is the majority of the greatest day crashes happen all clustered at this time called Tishri, around the time of Tishri. In fact, they all come within imagine the majority of the greatest day crashes happen within 2.5 weeks on the Hebrew calendar, all. The rest of the time and which one are they? The month of Tishri, or right at that time. And the financial analysts for years have been saying why, they're mystified, why do these great crashes tend to take place at the same time of the year? And people instinctively know it. It's September, October, the great crashes.
That's right.
Well, September, they can never figure it out. September, October is the month of Tishri that the Bible ordained. So even the timing of it, and then if you look at the greatest magnitude crashes, these are called the point crashes. The top 5, the question would be here, do any of them happen at the end of the cycle, the Shemitah, that peak time? How close do they come to that wipeout day, Elul 29, when things have to be wiped out? The answer is amazing. I mean, it's stunning. Okay, it can happen any time. In a 7-year period, the greatest crash can happen any time. But I believe we have a clip that shows the greatest crashes and the amazing link to the biblical day of wipeout.
And I'm assuming that these drops are not only point totals, but other times percentages of the whole market value.
Yeah, there's 2 different measures. When you go by the greatest day crashes, that's the proportion. The greatest proportion crashes all cluster, or the majority cluster at the same time of Tishri. Now, this is the other measure, which is the greatest point crashes, the greatest magnitude crashes. Watch what they do.
Well, let's see the clip.
Now what happens if we look not at the greatest stock market percentage crashes in history, but at the greatest stock market point or volume crashes in history? Do any of these greatest crashes take place in proximity to the biblical day of financial nullifying, Elul 29? And not just Elul 29, but the Elul 29 that takes place only once in 7 years. A stock market crash can take place at any time within a 7-year period.
What is the proximity of the 5 greatest point crashes in stock market history to the once in 7-year biblical day of financial nullifying? The 5th greatest stock market point crash in history. Proximity to the biblical day of financial nullification, 99.6%. The 4th greatest stock market point crash, its proximity to the biblical day of financial wipeout, 97.5%. The 3rd greatest stock market point crash in history, its proximity to the Bible's day of financial nullifying, 100%. The 2nd greatest stock market point crash, its proximity to the biblical day of nullification, 99.3%. And the 1st greatest stock market point crash in history, its proximity to the Bible's appointed day of financial nullification, 100%. The average proximity and convergence of the 5 greatest stock market point crashes in history to the Shemitah's once in 7 years day of nullification, 99.3%. of the 5 greatest crashes in American history, the proportion taking place either in the wake of the Shemitah's 7-year climax or at that moment of climax itself is 100%.
That's quite a fascinating compilation of information for us. You've even had, Jonathan, some, I guess, people from the financial realm come and talk to you about this.
That's right. Yeah. After the book came out, or as it was coming out, all over, there were all sorts of financial sites from Wall Street and all that started picking up on it and featuring it, and then people who have contacted me about it. In fact, about like 1994, that crash, I didn't fully know when, and they said, do you realize this is all this way? And many of them, several of them came to me and said that, we've identified this 7-year cycle, the 7-year pattern here. But we didn't know anything about the Shemitah. And there are several financial sites and analysts, they chart out the 7-year cycle. And not just that, but it's a 7-year cycle that is geared to the biblical Shemitah, but they have no idea of it, but they're identifying the same years, 73, 80, 87, the same things exactly. So yeah, it's been amazing. In fact, one of the dynamics of the Shemitah is it wipes away debt, or in the Bible, it's linked to debt when the debt goes up. Well, one of the analysts said, there's been 2 general periods of debt, the greatest debt. One, and happen to be this. One is the 1930s.
Yes,
and the other is from about the 1970s to now, skyrocketing. I mean, it's never stopped. And when you look at when the dynamic of the Shemitah is at its most powerful manifestations, clear 2 periods, 1930s and from the 1970s on to now, the exact period that the power or the effect of the Shemitah, which makes sense biblically.
Yes.
But and right now debt is at its greatest. In the Bible, debt is not a good thing. It says that if you follow me, Israel, you'll lend to many nations, you will not borrow. Well, the inverse is if you don't, you'll be borrowing, you'll be in debt. Well, America, interestingly, went from the greatest creditor nation to the greatest debtor nation in this same period, and now our debt is astronomical. So, I believe this is a house of cards, and it's linked to many other things, but we are, I believe, on the precipice of a calamity.
I couldn't agree with you more. And even apart from the biblical, insights that we're getting here. And by the way, we didn't cite a verse for people, but I believe Deuteronomy 15:1-2 speaks of the year of release.
Yes.
Or the
yes. At the end, everyone shall be released. Yes. The quotes on the Shemitah are in the Torah. They're also in Leviticus and others where it says the 6th year, but yes.
Yes, okay. Just wanted to put that up because we're not just talking a Jewish concept. It's right out of Scripture.
This is God's concept,
God's calendar.
Yeah.
And I might want to state, our viewers will want to remember, because we may talk about a couple of recent ones in the 2000s in a moment.
Yes.
They didn't land on the same calendar day in our calendar.
Right.
There's a reason for that.
Yes, because what people remember, and it kind of tells you, I think, that God goes by His own calendar. There's
Good
2
point.
calendars, and generally I believe prophecy is geared to when you look at, and I know we'll get another program about how precise this is, the calendar that these things match up on. On the Western calendar, you have certain dates, but if you notice when you have Jewish holidays, they always change. They're always changing because the Jewish or biblical calendar is a lunar solar calendar. What we have in the West is a purely solar calendar. So they never, the days always kind of change within, the month of Tishri is within September, October, but it shifts back and forth. So with this, we're going to see, events, we're going to see events in the future programs where it's, it's, the 2 events are on different dates, yet on the Hebrew calendar, they're on the exact same day.
Right.
So I believe it's a sign that God does keep His own calendar that He gave.
And even if somebody's not real familiar with the math, they would be aware of this just knowing every year that Easter moves. It's all the way from March to April because it's driven by Passover.
Yeah, it's a mix. Yeah, Easter is Passover, really. Easter's not the best word, but the thing is that, when the church kind of it became Christianized, they sort of made a middle ground. They didn't want it. They didn't want it exactly on Passover. A lot of the first Christians were celebrating on Passover. For centuries, but they made it the first full moon of the equinox, which is often goes with Passover. Always so. Yeah. So I think it's pretty safe
something people can relate to.
Yeah, I think pretty safely that God. I think if that God's going to do prophetic events according to a calendar most likely it's going to be the Hebrew biblical calendar. And the Shemitah is a key in that. Actually, Shemitah is even linked to end time, is a key in end time prophecy. I know we'll get to it, that people don't even realize. I mean, the last period of end time prophecy is the tribulation period. What's that? 7-year cycle. Again, it's a 7-year cycle linked to Daniel, which is linked to the Babylonian captivity, all this. So the Shemitah is so big, and God is so precise.
Well, our guest is Jonathan Cahn, and we're talking about information in his book, The Mystery of the Shemitah, and now a brand new DVD with new information, The Mystery of the Shemitah Unlocked. And we're offering this, and you can call the 800 number on your screen or go to the website, prophecyinthenews.com, and you can order items individually, but we have a bundle package, Jonathan, that has the new DVD, and it has the book, and that's available, and also a kind of a bonus DVD,
yes,
the
something
History of the Seventh Cow.
Yeah, has not been widely released, and this is the Shemitah Continues, which is not in the book, it's not anywhere, and that is several things. One of them is the Mystery of the Seventh Cow, which is an amazing sign, which is a biblical thing that's appearing, but it's what's happened since, which is really not available. And in the Unlocked DVD, I also put in things about being prepared and also what we need to know. So there's a lot of things that are nowhere else.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're offering that bundle for $49.95 plus shipping and handling, or you can purchase items individually if you're interested. But I think the bonus DVD is only available in the bundle. Well, we could get into, we have 2 more shows to do with you, and I kind of want to explore some more things.
It's so big. It's so bigger even than this.
It's massive. But, as we kind of wind down this show and 2 more to go, let me just mention what you said at the outset. God gives a warning. And instead of just dropping the hammer, a warning is really a sign of his mercy.
Yes.
It's a call to repent.
Yes. If he was not, people say, oh, that's scary. No, it's the opposite. If God wasn't, if there was no warning, if there's a warning, that means it's a sign of hope. Because why would God give a warning if there's no chance of repentance or coming back? So it is his mercy, absolutely, to warn. And I believe that's the whole point. That's his heart, that all should come.
We saw that in the book of Jonah, where he didn't really offer any hope. He just said 40 days and Nineveh will fall.
That's right.
But they said maybe. The king said maybe God will show mercy. And they fasted and cried out to God, and God spared. The nation was destroyed, but he spared that generation.
Yes, and God's heart is mercy. His necessity is judgment.
Right.
His heart is mercy. And I believe his heart for America, here I would say this. People say, well, if you say a shaking's coming, and we're going to talk about the future, and I believe a great shaking's coming, does that mean there's no hope? It's the opposite. If there was no shaking, I believe there'd be no hope for America. The way it's going right now, most of us were saved because we were shaken. So where there's God, there's always hope. I believe there's going to be shaking, and there can also be revival.
Well, and we want to say to everybody who's watching, I think it gets people's attention really quickly when God touches the economy. Everybody's worried about the pocketbook. We want to remind you that silver and gold is esteemed so lightly in heaven that gold is what the streets are paved with. The only thing that can get you there is the precious blood of Christ. So trust him and keep looking up.